Burns McDonald?
Outside of work, no. No, not outside of work. Our relationship was very cordial when we were talking to each other. You know, I think the guys do a great job, but no.
Okay, and what about Wartzilla?
No.
Not outside work?
No. No, obviously I went to a conference. I think you guys know about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that I
There's a
consider
Wartzilla? Yeah, that's a conference.
I consider that work.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, other than that.
And there was a fishing trip there? Describe the fishing trip. What and who put the fishing trip on, or and who went, and what was the deal about? Because I've heard about a fishing trip that
Mm-hmm.
happened at the conference. So tell me what happened there.
Well, the next year's conference had a fishing trip.
The 2016 one did?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was there one of the 2015?
No, not for the conference, no.
Okay. Was there another one that they set up?
No. I'll tell you, I went fishing,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't as part of the conference.
And did you go fishing? Who did you go fishing with?
I went fishing with a couple of guys that already had a boat rented. I called the guy,
Mm-hmm.
the guide, and asked him if he had an opening, and he said yeah. So I went fishing on my own.
Mm-hmm. And what guy was it? Was it someone affiliated with either Burns McDonald or Wartzilla?
No, it was a guide and the
Oh, a guide.
a guide.
Uh-huh.
It was a fishing guide
Uh-huh.
that worked in the area.
In Portland?
No, it wasn't in Portland. It was
Oh.
it was at the mouth of the river, the Columbia River, on the ocean.
And when did this happen?
It was the day before I came back from the conference.
In 2015.
Right.
Now, you said it was not as part of the conference, but it was a couple of guys
Mhm.
with a boat running and called and asked if they had an opening in fishing. Who were these folks and how did you meet them? And
I met him on the boat.
okay, so how did you know that folks had a boat running? I mean, how did you become aware that there was a possible fishing?
I called the guide.
Okay.
The guide said he had an opening on the boat.
Okay. And how did you know? How did you find out about a guide to go about fishing? I mean,
I did a Google search, I think.
okay.
You know, bottom line is I was in an area that I'd never been in before, probably won't ever go back to. I always wanted to go salmon fishing, so I Googled, searched a fishing guide for salmon fishing and called him.
So it had nothing. But no one with the guide or the boat or the folks on the boat had any attended the conference at least.
No.
Or?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
You'd never met these people before or after?
No, so the fishing trip wasn't in Portland. It was
Well,
probably 40 or 50 miles away.
generally, no one can fault you what you're doing on your own time. You know,
Mhm.
if you're somewhere and you decide to go for a hike or
Mhm.
whatever, and you're not with anybody related to anything work related, that's your time.
Right.
You know, so we're not trying to fault you for that, but we're just trying to be really clear. It wasn't related to anybody who worked for Wartzilla, anybody who was connected with Burns and Mac,
Right.
any employees, anybody else. It was just you saying, I
Decided
want
to go
to
fishing.
I want to go
Mhm.
fishing while I'm up here. I'm going to check this out.
Right.
That's what you're telling us.
Right.
Okay. Did Phil ask you about that trip?
He asked me if I went fishing.
Okay.
Mhm.
And did you tell him those facts?
I told him I went fishing. Yeah.
Did you tell him that it was completely unrelated to any of these companies or any of these activities?
I don't think so. I mean, he asked me if I went fishing. I told him I went fishing. I told him I paid for it.
Because of course you did, because it's your own.
Well,
Right.
sure.
Right.
I mean, I guess I'm struggling to understand here because the
That's why we have to do investigation.
what's why we have to do an investigation, right? But that seems like a critical point to not point that out to Phil. That hey, yeah, I went fishing. Sure. What's the big deal? You know,
That's kind of what I'd
I
say.
went to a
I think.
conference in Denver, not personally, a few months ago, and I went and had a beer in a restaurant.
Mhm.
So what? Right?
Yeah.
I was there by myself. I had a beer. No one bought me the beer. I wasn't being treated any kind of dinner. I guess I'm just asking. I'm wondering. It seems like a pretty consequential conversation. Someone comes and asks you about a particular episode of, did you do something? Is there something you need to tell me as a supervisor about this? You didn't think it was important to just emphasize, yeah, I went fishing just on my own? I'm trying to understand that. Am I missing something?
No, you're not missing anything.
Jim, if there's something you need to tell us, I want you to tell us. I mean, that's why we're here. We're trying to get to the bottom. As Julia said, we're trying to get to the bottom of this. If there's something we need to know, now's the time to tell us. We want to know. But
I went fishing with somebody from Wardzilla and somebody from Burns and Back.
okay, all right.
And I'm sorry I didn't tell you to begin with. I paid for my own portion. It was my idea. That was true.